Hello, good afternoon everyone. As part of our group assignment, today I will be presenting on the Optus 2022 data breach, one of the most significant cybersecurity incidents in Australia. In September 2022, Optus, the second largest telecommunication company in Australia, suffered a massive data breach that exposed the personal details of nearly 10 million current and past customers. The compromised data included names, date of birth, contact details, and in some cases, highly sensitive information such as driver license, passports, and Medicare numbers. The root cause of this incident was an insecure public API which had been left without proper authentication. Also, this human error created an entry point for attackers to illegally access vast amounts of sensitive data. The failure of Optus to secure the system not only represented a technical lapse but also raised serious questions about compliance with the Privacy Act 1988 and the Notifiable Data Breaches Scheme. And moving on towards the impact, it was so devastating. Customers faced the risk of identity theft and financial fraud. Optus' reputation suffered greatly and its CEO resigned the following year due to the ongoing fallout. Regulators such as the Australian Information Commissioner and the Australian Communications and Media Authority have since launched civil penalty proceedings that could result in millions of dollars in fines. Key stakeholders in this case include Optus management and security teams, its millions of effective customers, and regulatory bodies such as the AFP, OAIC, and ACMA. This incident also pushed the federal government to strengthen national cybersecurity frameworks to prevent similar failures in future. To conclude, the Optus data breach highlights how one weak security practice can lead to widespread consequences. Also, it helps in managing, monitoring, staff training, and stricter accountability and mechanism. Protecting customer data is not just a technical responsibility, and we also need to know it is also a legal and ethical obligations. Thank you, that's my part, and from now onwards I would like to invite my friend Rasid Dhagal to continue as part of our group assessment. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Rasid Dakal and I'll be covering technical elements and human factors of Optus 2022 data breach. From a technical perspective, the breach occurred because Optus had a publicly exposed API that lacked basic security controls. This API did not require authentication or authorization, meaning anyone who knew about it could directly query the database. On the top of that, there was no rate limiting which allowed attackers to run automated script and extract large amount of sensitive data in bulk. Optus also lacked proper anomaly detection systems, so the suspicious traffic blended in as a normal activity. The gap showed that company had not applied fundamental security practices such as least privilege access encryption for all sensitive fields and continuous monitoring. In terms of incident response, while Optus did activate the war room and engage Deloitte for forensic analysis, they were heavily criticized for their slow and unclear communication with customers. Many people did not know exactly what information had been stolen, which caused confusion and distrust. Now looking at the human factor, even though this was a technically driven breach, people and organizational culture played a big role. The API was most likely misconfigured by employees or contractors, and there was failure in peer review and security testing. There was also lack of ongoing vulnerability assessment that could have caught the issue earlier. This reflects broader cultural problem at Optus, where functionality seemed to be prioritized over security by design. Finally, Optus operated with a reactive security posture instead of proactive monitoring and threat. They only mobilized once the breach went public. This shows gap in employee training, internal auditing, and overall integration of cybersecurity in everyday business operation. So, in summary, while the exposed API was the direct technical cause of human breach, error, poor training, and a weak security culture were equally responsible for the scale and impact of the incident. Thank you.
So, today I'll explain the legal and regulatory side of the Optus data breach in simple terms. When Optus was hacked, several Australian laws immediately came into the play. The main one is the Privacy Act 1988, which says any company that handles personal data must take reasonable steps to keep it safe. That means protecting it from misuse, loss, or any unauthorized access. Then there is the notifiable data breach scheme, which is part of Privacy Act. It requires organizations to quickly suspect investigate any suspected breach, and if people are at risk of serious harm, they must tell those affected and report it to Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. Another key law is the Telecommunication Act 1979, which places security obligation and telecoms like Optus. In this case, the hackers got in through an open API, which is a serious security gap. This wasn't just a small issue, it exposed highly sensitive personal data, including government ID numbers. Laws like these are not just about having good tech, they require companies to think ahead and build security into their system from the start. The government didn't stay quiet. In May 2024, the Australian Communication and Media Authority began looking into whether Optus breached the telecom security rules or not. After, in August 2025, the OAIC took Optus to the court, accusing them of failing to protect customer data properly under the Privacy Act. We've seen something similar before, like the Medibank breach in 2022, which also triggered strong regulatory action and heavy fines. The bottom line is that Optus' failure to apply basic security measures like locking down their API and using real-time monitoring likely broke the law and showed a lack of compliance with Australia's strict privacy rules.
So finally now I'll be talking about the Optus data breach and what we can learn from it. The breach was not just a technical failure but also a failure in human awareness and organizational governance. Optus had an API left publicly open without proper security and the breach was only discovered late. This shows a lack of security by design, meaning security wasn't built into their system from the start. Because of this, millions of Australians had to lose their sensitive personal information, creating risk of identity theft and fraud. So legally, Optus failed to meet the requirements of the Privacy Act 1988 and the notifiable data breach scheme. Since they did not take reasonable steps to protect customer data, the seriousness of this incident is reflected in the action taken by the regulators like the Office of the Australian Information Commissioners and the Australian Commission and the Communication and the Media Authority. So what could we be done moving forward? Here are some the recommendations. So secure APIs using strong authentication encryption and least privileged access. Use rate limiting and anomaly detection to quickly spot suspicious traffic. Carry out regular security audits and penetration testing to find weakness before hackers do. Push forward strong industry regulation to make sure all telecom providers meet the same standards. Invest in staff training and adopt a privacy by design culture where security is considered in every step of development and operation. So if Optus and the other telecom companies follow these steps, they can rebuild public trust, improve compliance with the law and make Australia's critical communication infrastructure far more secure against the future threats. Finally, I would like to note that the analysis was supported by the information from the Privacy Act 1988 and other Australian government legislation, report from the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, and action taken by the Australian Communication. Thank you.